All right, you guys, welcome to all. Listen, I'm very excited about today. Well, I guess I'll give it a moment for it to kind of load here before I continue. But I pray that everyone's having an amazing day. Everyone is being productive and weathering the storm. I see you all coming right on in. Come on in. Come on in. Welcome. So listen, I'm very excited today because we have Bob Marovich. Bob Marovich is one of my mentors. So first, let me start off by telling you, Bob, thank you so much for joining me, as well as your work. It's pretty, is precise, and I'm very excited that you've chosen gospel music to dwell among and just execute so profoundly as the way that you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show, Eric. And I actually think gospel music probably chose me.
That's a good one there. Pretty much gospel music is an ongoing journey, and where in this journey you can find unprescribed remedies to a lot of life's encounters. So that's one of the rich tools that I go by that fuels my interest in continuing my study as it relates to gospel music. But listen, Bob, we're in 2020. How in
Mhm.
the world is 2020 treating you?
It's a combination of everything. I mean, as with everybody, it's just a stressful time. There's so much unknown.
Hmm.
You and I both have had friends, colleagues, relatives, people that have gotten the COVID virus. Uh, God be praised, most have recovered, but we have lost quite a few people.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
um, so there is that piece of it, which is very, this is just such an unprecedented time. I can't, certainly not in my lifetime. And I think probably maybe not since the Second World War have we had such a very impactful experience in our society in terms of, being locked down, being unable to do certain things that we used to do. Um, on the work side, because I am a writer, because everything I do is pretty much done from home, online, so forth. Work has stayed the same. I had continued to do grant writing, and I continue to do gospel music journalism and other forms of music journalism. Those, I mean, I suppose if there's been a change, it has been in that some of the projects that should have been out by now have been delayed because there are stores not open or whatever. But you know, otherwise the work continues. I really
Oh,
haven't seen a
absolutely.
change in the work.
Yeah, and I know that you participate in, well, you have participated in a few marathons. How's that kind of going right now? Are they like not even in existence right now? How
They
is that
are no
working out for
longer
you?
in existence. That's correct. Yes. Originally this year, I thought I would run in the November marathon in Indianapolis, and then by April, I could tell that there was no way you could train for it successfully. And now most marathons are. I mean, in fact, all the ones I know are canceled. They're saying you could run virtually, but I'm not a big fan of virtual races. I'll wait a year. So I just go out and do my run. My little 4 or 5 miler. I just do my thing and just wait till next year.
I
So
got you.
yeah,
I,
there's no marathons.
I totally understand now. Although your passion is a huge chunk of the reason why I have this opportunity or this privilege, but allow me to deviate for a moment. I must acknowledge your kindred spirit as well as your massive, compassionate heart. So it's truly refreshing. I just want to make sure I say that away from your work because definitely your work is beautiful, but to deviate away from there, you are outstanding individual.
Thank you, thank you. I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. So let's kind of dive in a little bit right here. So when you were younger, like school younger, elementary school, whatever, younger, okay, because you're
Yeah,
young still.
yeah. Back in those days, yeah.
So in the midst of your accumulations of professions that you kind of was gearing towards, was gospel music or writing or anything that you're doing, was that included in there?
No, well, I have ideas, but when and this is sometimes where you know, um, and I would always say to people now. don't listen to others. I listened to others. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a disc jockey. And somebody said, "Oh, you can't make any money being a disc jockey. Why would you do that? You got to go to school. You got to, the joke always was, you have three choices. You could be a doctor, a lawyer, and if you weren't going to be one of those two things, you were going to be a bum." And so, I thought, well, I guess I'm a bum. But I really wanted to be a disc jockey, and then I wanted to get into communications, and somebody told me, "Oh, you shouldn't do that." So there was always a you shouldn't do.
Right, right,
And so I literally went to college thinking I would go into law. I met an attorney who said, "You've got to love the law to be a lawyer." And I didn't ever consider loving the law. So I aspired, I didn't know what I aspired to be honest, Eric. I just thought, I knew I had always written, I'd been a writer as a kid, always writing little stories and things, but never thought of it as anything you could really do for a living.
right,
But every
right.
job I got out of college had writing as it was involved. I was in fundraising full time. I walked
Wow.
into the profession, spent 23 years in the profession, did a lot of writing, and I think uh, I just, yeah, I think there were more opportunities that I looked at as a kid that were said you shouldn't do that, to the
Hmm.
point where I really didn't know what I should do.
Right,
Just
right.
kind of, I think it finally my vocation found me.
You know what? That's quite it's familiar to me because I allow life to run its course and it sidetracked me. I just had a talk with my mentor, Dr. Charles Clancy, earlier today. I was talking about that, and I kind of got the notion or epiphany that sometimes it is those things that happen in life that draws us to a better conscience of our purpose. And so I don't regret life. I sometimes I regret the time, but I believe that God's timing is perfect. So I think I'm where I should be at the perfect time.
And that's a very good point, Eric, because it we are being driven to a position, and so we may look back and say, why did X Y happen? Why did Y Z happen? Why did A B C happen? But then when you connect the dots, you realize they all happened to bring you to this place.
Hmm.
And so all of those experiences that you had that you feel, well, maybe it didn't really contribute to where I'm at today. If you really look at them, they probably did in one way
Yeah,
or another.
you're,
Some piece of it contributed to where you're at today and where you're going tomorrow. So that's the way I look at it as well.
oh, absolutely. So check. So since we're talking about passion, I think that it's profitable to dive right into the origins of your passion for
Mhm.
gospel music.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was, that's why I say gospel found me. Growing up as a kid, I really liked the music of Booker T and the MGs. I liked
Okay.
the Motown sounds. I was so thrilled when one Christmas I got one of those little, almost looked like a little suitcase record player. Popped up and it had like 45 and 33 and then it came with a stack of records and they were all like
Wow.
off-label Motown, like Motown records, but not their hits. And I just played those over and over again, but I never really thought of gospel music.
Wow.
I know I'd heard Mahalia Jackson and all that, but I never really paid much attention to gospel. I paid attention to R&B and blues and soul and rock and everything else. But it wasn't until I was in college when I was looking. I was the music minister for our dorms. I went to a Catholic university and we had a mass every Sunday night at 11 p.m. And I was the music minister for it. And so getting ready to pick the music for that evening, I just put the radio on and I was looking for a station I listened to in Chicago, WXFM. And I found it, but the show I was looking for wasn't on the air anymore. It was the Cosmopolitan Church of Prayer radio broadcast. And I'm listening to Father Hayes and the Warriors, and all the dots are connecting in my mind. I'm like, this is where all the music I'm listening to comes from. So I just dove right in and listened to that show, tape recorded it on my cassette player, played it over and over. Never figured I'd ever meet Father. I never even thought about it. Um, and then fast forward, I got married. My wife taught at Providence St. Mel School in Chicago, which is, well, now it's an all African American K through 12. Then it was just 9 through 12. And she had a choir and she taught them all sorts of music, classical, spirituals, different languages, things. but they always ended with a gospel song, whatever the gospel song was of that era. Kirk Franklin, Orlando Draper, John P. Key, Hezekiah, whatever it was. And that reinvigorated my interest. Uh,
Got you.
so that's, excuse me, that's where I really decided I like this music. I know absolutely nothing about it.
Right,
And I
right.
had to do something about that.
Well, I want to break my structure for a second, but I think that my next planned question kind of outweigh me breaking my structure. So I want to ask you this. So, what are some of your earliest endeavors as it relates to spreading your passion for gospel music once you found it?
First, it was a gentleman in Vancouver Island in British, I guess that's British Columbia. Anyway, it's near Seattle, Washington. He had a website in the late 90s called Blues Web, and he had a gospel section. And at the time, he was looking for somebody to kind of write for. So I said, I'll tell you what I can do. I said, I can sort of every week send you a song and gospel that a recording that I think everyone should have in their collection. And so I did that from 1998 to maybe 2002. And then he retired. He
Okay.
decided he was going to take the site down, and that was the end of it. Um, but I had started Gospel Memories, the radio show, in May of 2001. So, I was doing that every month. It was just once a month at that time, and not writing anymore because Blues Web was gone. And then my wife said, she had started a blog, and she said, you should, if you still want to write about gospel, maybe you should start a blog. And I didn't even know how to turn a blog on, to be honest. I had no idea. I just thought, but she said, see if gospel blog is available. And if it is, maybe that's your sign. So it was. Black Gospel Blog was a sign. And the only reason I picked Black Gospel Blog at the time is I knew if people saw my face, they would be thinking I'm writing about Southern gospel, writing about the Gaithers and, the Kingsmen and all that. And I thought, no, no, no. So I thought Black Gospel Blog. And I started it. And really, a lot of it had to do with I had joined the Gospel Announcers Guild of the GMWA, and I would go to the meetings in Chicago, and artists would give me their CDs and say, would you play it? I'm like, I do an oldie show. I can't play new. So I thought, well, this is a way that I can review these new projects. I knew that I didn't feel comfortable taking these projects and not doing anything with. I said, at least I can do is give you a review. And so that's where the blog started, out of guilt. Just
Wow.
I can't be taking people's projects and not doing something.
Right. So, that's amazing. Okay, so now we know the earliest endeavor as it
Mhm.
relates for once you found your passion. So, of course, once you find your passion, you begin to research, and when you begin to research, you begin to find roots of your passion. So, as it relates to the roots, or how are you grounded in the intel and the knowledge of the field of gospel music? How far back do you go? Do you study theology? Are we African American culture, the Great Awakeness? Like, where is where do it begin with you?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I think as I went along, I did two things. I think the Gospel Announcers Guild helped me understand the church culture.
Okay.
Growing up Catholic, I really needed to learn the church culture and the protocol that for many is sort of second nature. You grew up with it, you knew it. To me, I really had to learn the protocol of and what was really happening here, because growing up Catholic, a lot of people in the Catholic Church that I knew were very frightened of other religions. I remember one time going to an Episcopalian service, and somebody really was upset at me that how dare you go to another church not Catholic. They were really upset. And I
Hmm.
thought, this is nothing. I mean, it's just the same Jesus. It's the same Jesus. But I really needed to learn that. So it was getting to go to the programs, learning the churches, learning what it was all about, and really finding more spirituality in the African American church experience than I ever felt in the Catholic experience.
Okay.
The other part, just the learning of it, was just going back and realizing, you know, uh, I would have to say, I probably went back to the very beginning, well, actually, before enslaved Africans were brought here, to
Okay.
look at the music of West Africa, to look at the
Okay.
religion of West Africa, and figuring out. So this was the origin. What did individuals bring with them on the Middle Passage?
Hmm.
And because all they had with them were their culture, their music, their lifestyle. They could bring nothing with them, so they brought that. And so, what was that? And trying to understand, because I think there was a real sense that there was a disconnect between gospel and the roots, and actually, gospel sort of reflects the roots better than any other kind of African American music. So just learning that West African culture, understanding where the music came from, the celebratory music, that there really was no difference between sacred and secular in West Africa. All music was music, led me to better understanding, and also just the way then that was translated from the religions in West Africa to Christianity, and
Gotcha.
you know what was developed in that interim to make it to what we know today as African American sacred music.
Wow. It's I really you are truly one of my mentors. Like I really get a lot of energy. I get a lot of fuel from your work. Um, I like your preciseness. I like your how you articulate through your pen. I like your focus, and I like the dignity and the class that you work in. Some people like gospel music, but they are not respectful to
Right.
gospel music. You're respectful. Like your work is refreshing to the world. You are one of the ones that causes people to say, "Hey, let me look where my roots are," because a lot of times through time we kind of lose the value or the significance of understanding who we are and where we come from. But it's people like you that work in humility that causes a epiphany for the newer generation. So I just wanted to throw that in there right there.
I appreciate that, Eric, because that's really what was behind the city called Heaven. What I didn't want to write was a book that just talked about a very small portion of gospel, maybe just about the fame and fortune that some receive. I thought, this book needs to talk about its church roots. I mean, all too often, I'd say people who look like me learned about gospel from going to R&B concerts. I say, I guess I kind of fell in that category, listening. I kind of came across it on radio. So you're always learning about it from radio or records or whatever. But it's from the church. And I thought, I don't want to write another book that talks about how gospel music seemed to come out of nowhere and suddenly there were quartets on stage and making
Right,
records. This was a church-based music. And so I thought,
right,
I'm focusing on these churches in Chicago in particular. I mean, the church, I mean, it would have been disrespectful. It would have been untruthful to write a book that sort of didn't talk about these very influential churches, and not just Pilgrim and Ebenezer and all, but First Church of Deliverance and New Nazareth and the other churches that contributed. Um,
right.
just to get that helicopter view to say, once artists began to get together, they sort of shared the music, and so to not talk about a first church because it's a spiritual church and try to give the credit to Baptist, or saying, well, it's all Kojic and not Baptist, it's all of them.
Yeah, yes,
So,
yes. Okay, so of course we gotta go just a little bit more deeper, and then we're gonna take a little intermission. I have a couple of footage, some footage from your phenomenal work that I want to just share on or document on this particular. So let's talk about the meter hymn. Let's talk about
yes.
Dr. Isaac Watts, and let's talk about Charles Albert Tilley. What can you compare Dr. Isaac Watts' version or perspective of the meter hymn with Charles Albert Tinley's different approach by using more, because I have read that Dr. Isaac Watts, he kind of simplified his text for that particular time. And there is a similarity in Charles Albert Tinley because he simplified his text to talk for the time that he was in. But can you elaborate, or from your perspective, the meter hymn, the meter hymn of Dr. Isaac Watts to the meter hymn of Charles Albert Tilley.
Yeah, no, you're right on top of it. That's exactly right. It was really a reflection of the times for Watts, and particularly when Watts was sort of his music was brought to America. It was, you know, nobody. Well, the common person wasn't musically literate. They couldn't read notes. So here was a music that they could teach. You know, just sing it this way and repeat after me, and it was a way to teach people who were you know, uneducated in music to sing. And the language had to be simple too. I mean, you know, a lot of earliest settlers of America weren't, I mean, some of them were literate, some of them weren't. And so, and particularly as, you know, before we really established a really good series of educational institutions, it was hard. I mean, you really didn't, education was sort of a luxury at that point. So you had to teach people simple, simple, simple. And you're right. Dr. Tinley did the same thing. He realized that, you know, people had those big lofty hymns weren't satisfying the soul.
Right,
And
right.
this is not the kind of music, well, you know, it might be nice for Easter or something, but, you know, there's songs where you just need some meat, you know, to get
Yeah.
through the day. And he felt, let's make it simple so people could sing it and make it meaningful in the words of the person who's singing it. And he did that. And it, proof positive is a lot of those songs are still with us. They still mean something to people.
Hmm.
Many of those songs.
Wow. So let me ask you a question right before I go to this intermission. So I just want to hear from your perspective. So hymn lining and raising the line of a hymn, are there there's the same thing but just different terminology for the person that use it, or how do you describe that?
Right. I mean, some people call it raising a hymn, and it's usually it's just the deacon that gets up and raises the line, and then everyone sings it back.
Right.
It's the same practice, and it's also there's also people that still use that in shape note singing.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, and so you still have that old tradition, and some of those songs are just, I mean, Dr. Watts hymns, those are just some really beautiful songs, just really kind of startlingly beautiful songs.
My God. Listen, I better hurry because I mean we could just talk and talk because I could go into like the hymnal, how the Mexico index, how it was to me, I think that was phenomenal how you can literally go to that index to kind of decipher how the song should be sang.
Right, right,
we
right.
don't do that anymore. You know, everything is just spontaneous. Although it's creativity, but I do like structure as it relates to certain things. But I never want to take away our originality. But let me go to this clip, and we'll be right back. Thank you so much, Bob.
Thank you, Eric.
Let me try to find this. I hope everyone's enjoying this so far. Okay, let's see here. All right. So the clip that I'm going to play, this is going to be Bob Marovich talking on VJ Records.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right.
Town and Chess Records, but before those labels struck gold, there was a small black-owned record company run by a husband and wife team right here in Chicago that was poised to go platinum.
WGN's Tanya Francisco has the little-known story about the rise and fall of VJ Records.
At My Front Door was a #1 hit for the Eldorados. It also helped open the door for a little mom and pop record label out of Chicago called VJ Records.
Sound heard around the world.
VJ got its start in the Steel City, Gary, Indiana, by a woman named Vivian Bracken.
She was an entrepreneur from a young age.
In 1948, Bracken won a contest which led to her getting her own radio show called Livin' with Vivian. 2 years later, she opened a record store. Music historian Bob Marovich.
What was happening was that people were coming in looking for blues, looking for local artists, looking for gospel, and she just didn't have it available. So she got the idea in early 1953 to start a record company with James Bracken.
They named it VJ, the V for Vivian, the J for James or Jimmy. With $500, they cut a couple of singles for an R&B group fresh out of Gary's Roosevelt High School named the Spaniels.
They scored their first hit with their second record, Baby It's You by the Spaniels.
Baby, I need you so.
It was just the start for one of the first black-owned record labels in the country.
I had the first million seller for VJ.
All right, so we're back. I just wanted to share just a little bit of that.
And I'll give you a hint to all of those records and all of those pictures, not the videos. They're from my collection.
Oh, and I was just going to ask you. So I saw that you had what was that, a 45 in a specialty wrapping. Or would you just use what you had available?
Yeah, I brought everything with. I brought it with me, and it actually the record player wouldn't work at first, and so 3 or 4 WGN technicians came in and got it to work.
Oh wow!
They could do the shoot. But yeah, all of those come from my collection except for the videos, and there were many more that they took, but they had to cut it back.
Wow!
It was filmed right there at WGN in Chicago.
Wow! Now I played that for a reason. So yes, of course you had Apollo, State. By that time, Safari was around, but as it relates to VJ, because a lot of people did convert over, you had Alex Bradford, the Argo singers. I mean, you just, it's so many, the list go on. So when did you kind of pick up the notion to begin to study the evolution of record labels that recorded Black gospel music?
Probably about the same time that I started learning about gospel. I really, because I just had a little, at the time when I first started learning, and this had to have been in the late 90s, 96, 97, I just had a very small stack of 78s, very small stack. And so I started to learn. Luckily, they were the big artists. They were Brother Joe May and Roberta Martin singers and Mahalia. And I think I had the Davis sisters and the Gospel Harmonists. So it sort of gave me a good framework for studying it. But actually, VJ is something that I have had an interest in going back, to the 80s.
Okay.
So VJ even predates everything, and then I learned later that VJ really got its start in part because of the need for more local gospel recordings, which just they didn't have. I mean, if it wasn't for United in States, Parrot, some
Decca, right?
Yeah. But VJ really took off, and one of their first sessions, all-night sessions, was gospel, and they started their catalog right from there. So they really started kind of blues, R&B, doo-wop, and gospel all at the same time. All local artists, people that from Gary, from Chicago. I'm surprised they didn't get the Caravans earlier, to be honest, because the Caravans are from Northwest Indiana as well.
I don't know their takes on the Caravans. But I appreciate. I don't know. It's just I don't know.
Yeah.
But I was going to ask you: is it safe to say that Pastor Maceo Woods recorded the iconic "Amazing Grace" on VJ?
Oh yeah.
Initially,
yeah.
Okay.
It was actually in response to. The story goes that Vivian was looking for somebody to do a theme song, some instrumental music for her radio show, and asked Reverend Woods to do it because he was one of the studio musicians at VJ. So if you're listening to anything with organ on it, it's Reverend Woods.
Wow.
And she asked him, would he do it? And the story goes that he was kind of just fooling around on the organ with some melodies, and she was recording it. I'm not sure that was exactly the way it went, but I do think she asked him specifically for some ideas, and Amazing Grace was one of them. And I think she just thought it would be a great theme song, and suddenly became one of the biggest selling instrumentals of all time.
Before I kind of was more conscious of it all, me growing up, I always heard that on the funeral commercial. So I just thought they just passed that from funeral home to funeral home. I think Golden Gates used. I know it was a lot of funeral homes that used that Amazing Grace.
Yeah.
So I want to ask you this before I get off of VJ. Is this our king? I think his name is Richard. But do that ring a bell as it relates to VJ? Our
Richard
king.
Simpson?
King.
Richard, I'm sorry,
Art
Richard King.
King. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've seen his name as well as a composer. I
Yeah.
don't know much about him. I know
Okay.
he's written songs, and I know Alex Bradford, but I don't know much about him.
Okay.
I
Okay.
think he's associated with Bradford somehow.
Okay. Because I've been searching and searching. I'm like, I might as well sneak that in there.
Yeah, yeah, no, I've seen his name as well, and I think it's somebody who's associated with Alex Bradford that got involved. But um, who am I going to think of the name? Give me a second here. I'm thinking of Reverend Maceo Woods, well, I'll come back to it. I'll come back.
Okay.
There's somebody that worked at VJ that we need to talk about.
Was it Billy Carson, right? Oh no.
No, it was. I'm blanking right
VJ.
now. It's terrible.
Was it a musician or a producer or a singer?
It was actually it was somebody who uh, that recorded and also was a songwriter and a lead sheet writer for for VJ, and did all that. And it's going to come to me. It's going to come to me.
Come on.
Anyway, I'll get it.
You get it.
Keep
Okay.
on going, and it'll pop out.
Okay, so look, of course, I have to study. So recently, I stumbled across the great knowledge of your dealings as being a biographical sketch, writing the biographical sketches for the artists on Malik Records. Now, how did that come about? And I always read them. I didn't know it was you.
Yeah, it was a friend of mine, Opal Nations from San Francisco, was contacted, and they were looking for somebody, and he recommended my name. At the time, Lee Hildebrand, who has done many liner notes and projects over the years, was involved. And then I was going to get involved, and we were going to split them up. And then Lee got sick, and then I just took him over from there. Um, but and so yeah, it turned out that we did. I don't know, wow, how many? Maybe close to 200 bios. But I also do them. For other places as well. So
Oh, tell
whenever
me.
I do, yeah. So whenever a project now comes out, I'll say most projects now that come out on Motown Gospel or RCA Inspiration, if they want an extended bio on the artist to talk about the artist and the album, I'll do those. I work through their public relations. So Donald Lawrence's album Goshen, the one that just came out with Dr. Stevenson and his choir here in Chicago. I've done them for Jonathan Nelson, Jason Nelson, CC Winan. So, and really the idea is to bring in the historical aspect and then also the creative aspect. So really trying to get at, when somebody writes a song, what is the inspiration for that song, and what do they want it to communicate to somebody, and then also, who are the people they bring together to make that recording and make it work,
Wow.
and make it relevant.
That's amazing. Bob, man, I don't know what to say about you. But you know what? I feel like this. When I grow up, I definitely want to be, if it's not just like you, very similar to you. Okay. By the way, you mentioned Donald Lawrence. Donald Lawrence, I don't know if he's still watching, but just wanted to call out his name and tell you a wonderful job that you're doing
Great.
and keeping gospel music afloat. Yeah, yeah. I want to
And
definitely say that.
the name is Kenneth Woods Jr. I was thinking of.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah. He's still alive.
Yes, he is
I
91.
think he's in yeah.
Yeah.
And we'll pick up the phone and say hello. And who is this?
Exactly. And he would write for VJ. He would write the lead sheets for artists who were recording, so that they could get the music together. And he also had the Knowles and Jackson Sextet, which really should have been, and the Sally Martin singers were on VJ, and that really was Kenneth. And also that people don't know that on those early Lucy Smith Singers records on States, the organist was Kenneth Woods Jr.
He's a walking history book.
He is. He really is.
He really is. What was I gonna say? So I'm gonna go to another intermission, but when I come back, I want to definitely capitalize on this time to pay homage to sheet music.
Yes.
or African American gospel sheet music, and take it from there. And we're going to talk about a city called Heaven, and we're definitely going to talk about the clip I'm playing. You're doing a phenomenal job on Conversations with the Gospel Legends. I don't even want to cry, but it was just an honor. Actually, like I remember very vividly just watching episode after episode. Like I'm like, how in the world would I ever be like? I'm 36 years old, and I don't, for some way somehow, it worked out. And I remember I told uh, Reverend Bailey that, and he said, "Son," he said, "Did you ask for it?" He said, "God answered your prayer." You know how he.
Exactly. Yeah. That's right. Exactly.
All
Exactly.
right.
Right. And it was great to have you on the show. That was so awesome.
I appreciate that. Oh, we got to talk about you coming to Phoenix too. All right, so I'm about to go and play this clip, and hopefully you all enjoy this. Let's see what we can do. All right. Yes, there we go. Technology, right?
Mhm.
All right.
Welcome. Good day. I'm Bob Marovich, your host. We are doing Conversations with the Gospel Legends. Again, I'm so grateful to Reverend Harold Bailey and the PCC International Network for welcoming this show where we have a chance to hear the living history from our living legends of gospel music. Today we are once again in great presence. To my right, Vernon Oliver Price and Loretta Oliver, great gospel singers, internationally known. Thank you for being on the show. Welcome.
Thank you for having us.
Bless you.
My
Thank
pleasure. Well, we're going to go back. Talk about growing up in the Oliver household as young children.
That was a lot of us.
How many children? How many children?
My mother had 10 children,
10 children. Okay.
and it was 8 of us in this household.
Wow.
And we was ruled by the rule. We went to church every Sunday. We worked in the Sunday school, the Sunshine Band, the Purity class, everything that was in the church going on for the young people and the old folks, we were in it. Every convention that they had, we went. Our mother took us all. She didn't leave us at home. She always took us with her. And we've been going to our conventions ever since we were youngsters. And my mother told me that I started walking in Memphis, Tennessee.
The Church of God in Christ
Church of God.
Convention.
That's the headquarters in Memphis, Tennessee. So we've been working ever since ever since I was 3.
And so there's 4 years difference between the two of you.
Yes,
Now,
I never figured it out.
it is.
Oh, you turn it off. That's amazing.
Oh, I love those
That
things.
is, oh man, it's just, and then like I like the way how you live it. Like how I said, the name of the show is Conversations with the Gospel. It's not an interrogation at all. It's literally a conversation, and I so appreciate you for that. So tell me a little bit about Conversations with the Gospel Legends.
You know, it was really Reverend Harold Bailey's idea. He had been asking me to do it for years. And he kept saying, you know, the studio is yours if you ever, and I just never saw myself on television. I'm a radio guy. I just thought, no.
Oh, don't say what I think you're about to say.
I just thought, yeah, I'm not the face of television. And I'm just kind of, you know, I thought I'm good behind the mic, right? And but he kept saying, whenever you want, the studio is yours. And I have to say, when Lady Doris Sykes passed away, I just said, that's a sign. We can't lose any more artists. We got to do this. And he was so gracious and said, let's do this. And so we thought, who can we really get to launch this? And we thought, well, the Barrett sisters, if they would say yes, and they said yes. And that's really what launched the show. And then from there, it was like, we want to find all of the living legends that are in Chicago, you know, like the Oliver sisters, and there's going on down the line, and anybody who would allow us to interview them who are comfortable with it, because it's not a singing show. It's really and that's the one thing that we thought was different about it, was that really just to hear these stories, the stories of these artists, you know, growing up. Maybe some of them migrated to Chicago, some of them were born here, but what was it that and inevitably you would hear these stories that you'd never heard before, and some of them were extraordinarily emotional.
Yeah.
What people went through, and also just you could sort of feel that the process of remembering
Right, right.
was almost overwhelming to think, it's like as if the artist could stop and say, I really, really made a difference. It's like you stop and think about what you accomplished in your life. And you may think of it as just a series of things going on. And then you start to realize, no, I really have changed people's lives. And you just see
Yes,
that happen. And I thought,
yes.
that's what Reverend Bailey wanted. And we were able to capture that.
Well, you're doing a wonderful job. And just let me add this too. To me, this is one of my theories or one of my notations that I use. Gospel music is a pictorial expression of the lives of the people that sing it. So, with that being said, by you having just a formal like sit down conversation with them, it actually attaches more significant to the already pictorial expression which is in the music. It gives you a more visual sense of the life, and you compare it with the songs and actually get a little bit more inspiration by hearing the stories. So I think
That's
that's
right,
fun. So
exactly. That's absolutely right. You hear some of the behind the scenes stories, what people went through, and also just the humility of, uh, and you know this from Chicago and from other cities as well, that the gospel community, everybody kind of hung out together, and maybe some folks made a little bit more money, but most didn't make a whole lot or lived maybe a middle class lifestyle, and so it was just the church, and everybody was familiar with each other, and nobody was higher than another, and you just got that sense that this is a community of individuals. It was just family, I guess is the best way to say it. And you get that sense of family there.
yeah, and if you want to hear with in other words what Bob Marovich just said, watch the documentary Stay Man Somebody, because William A. Ford she will bluntly tell you exactly what you just
Yeah, right. Exactly.
should
Exactly.
go into depths and everything. But however, let's get into the sheet music. What from a historian perspective, what is the value or the significance of sheet music in African or Black gospel music?
Sure. I mean, it was before recordings. It was really the way to learn the music. The choir would sing the songs. You would sell the sheet music so that people could teach it to their own choirs or take it home and play it. It was really just there for um, kind of a general idea. You were supposed to make the song your own and elaborate on it, but at least it was there before recordings. You could buy copies, give it to the choir, learn it with your groups. Eventually recordings and then Xeroxes kind of killed the sheet music business. But back in those days, I mean, that was the only way to get songs. And if you were a aspiring songwriter and you wanted to have your songs sung in other churches, you'd best get in touch with Kenneth Morris or Roberta Martin or Clara Ward or somebody, Theodore Fry. Dorsey only did his own song to get published, because then they could get your songs distributed, and
Yeah.
maybe they would even show up on a broadcast, and then people would hear it and say, I want to sing that song, and then they'd go and
Right.
buy the sheet music.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing how you just said that. I don't know how it happened. God just works in mysterious ways. I literally got a chance to interview Mama Lou Dell Evans
Oh yeah.
Reed, and when I called her, she was like, "Eric." I was like, "Wait a minute, how you know?" She said, "You was calling me, right?" So you can tell, let you know that her mind is very sharp.
Oh yeah.
So, however, I just mentioned her because I found something very significant in her interview that she so candidly gave. She said when before she moved to Chicago, the way that she learned music for her church was by listening to First Church of Deliverance radio broadcasts. So that lets me know the significance and how potent that the airways were at that particular time when people wasn't recording on the massive that
Right,
they
right,
began to do in the late 40s and
right. In
so on.
fact, it's really, if you look at the history of gospel recordings, the quartets had a long history of recording.
Yo,
But I mean, really, it wasn't until 28, 29, you have, 26, I suppose you
yeah,
have Sister Arizona Drain.
yeah,
But really, the gospel songs, like the Dorsey gospel songs, you're talking 1933, 33, and just a few, not many.
right.
Most of it was, what do you call the street corner evangelists, like a
Oh
blind,
yeah,
Joe Taggart playing. It really took a while for that to catch on. And so, yeah, people would try so hard to get their songs in front of the First Church choir
Oh
because they knew
yeah.
if they sang them, it was like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
yeah.
And then what I think, two more things before I get off sheet music. What I think, my perspective is that I believe that Thomas Dorsey, he was so profound by doing the sheet music because not only was it a way to distribute music, but it was a way to lead by example for ownership.
Exactly.
You know, because I found in different scenarios when some of the composers began to write for these or arrange for these publishing houses, you know, they went off and got a contract with someone, you know, the one that owned the publishing to the music was still getting paid. And you know, it was a couple of situations that happened where it was an artist that, you know, was kind of upset with the publisher because, you know, he didn't own the publishing, you know, so all he could gain off was his engagement, things of that sort. So I think that that publishing since, you know, at that early age was very profound on many different levels.
Absolutely. I mean, that whole idea of entrepreneurship,
Yeah.
you know, that was, I mean, if you look at, particularly in Chicago, and I know Philadelphia had, and Los Angeles had, New York, I can speak best to Chicago, was that it really was an opportunity to keep the money in the community. And so to have your own publishing and to be able to have it open. And I know places like Martin and Morris were open late on Sundays so that people coming from church could go there and buy the music that they heard and translate it from there. It really was an opportunity for Black entrepreneurship in the community to do something that was ownership. I think Sally Martin really helped Thomas Dorsey. I know he was the creative force, and she was sort of like the business person to go in and really help drive the music forward. And she did all the traveling to different places to teach choirs how to sing his music. And then, of course, then he had Mahalia go with him and sing the songs that he was teaching. But he was the creative, and Sally was the businesswoman. I know Kenneth Woods has said that she was at one time an extraordinarily wealthy woman because of, I remember hearing a story, and I don't know if it's true or not, but that she was getting on a train, and she was told by the conductor, you're not able to ride on this car of a train, you have to ride in the back part. And she said, I could buy this train, sir. And I'm sure she could.
My God, that is so funny. Listen. I mean, we can go on and on. So I just want to kind of read this. So, just so this documented. So the purpose of this interview was really well, not interview. This presentation was pretty much to journey into your passion for gospel music and to understand the significance of gospel music from a historian's perspective. Now, with that being said, what are you working on now?
Well, I'm working on a book on the history of Peace Be Still, the 1963 album. It's actually done. The book is done, but it's with the University of Illinois Press, and we are obtaining the final images for the book. And because they have seasons certain seasons that they put out books, this one will not make the next season. It will make the following season. So it means it won't be out until later next year. So probably around August, September of 2021. So that one is still on. Also, and I'll show you this because it's right behind me.
Please do.
This is done. This is done. It's
oh wow.
This is a it's 3 CDs and several albums of Savoy Gospel from 19. I think is 50. Well, no, it's actually, we go back further than that. Here's the little guy. So this is the little CD. A Stranger I would be
54.
54 to 86.
Wow.
Yeah, this is out of England. This is it's all the Savoy projects, and so it's 3 CDs long. I think I could probably get you a real good screenshot. Well, it's not going to really show up that well, I don't think, but you can maybe see some of the songs.
Wow.
But it's not officially available until I believe September or October. but it comes out of a place called Honest John's in the UK in England, and they basically took all of the Savoy products from 54 to 86 and made just a little box. So I wrote the album notes for this.
Question:
Yeah.
What's the difference from the Gospel according to Malachi and this presentation of Savoy?
Oh, this one, yeah. Well, this one is all Savoy,
Okay.
and it's also it really focuses on more of the contemporary Savoy artists that came out in the, not so much the choirs, more the groups, the singers, and the quartets.
Okay.
So it's really focusing on artists like the Gospel. There's a Dayton, Ohio on Savoy, or the 4th of May with Charles and Annette May, or the Charisma, the Stanley Review, Myrna Summers, James Cleveland, Brooklyn Skyway.
Wow.
So it was really curated by a gentleman in England who put this all together. They had been curating this collection for several years, and finally now it is complete. It was Greg Belson, David Hill, and Mark Ainley together came up with the music, and then I wrote the album notes.
Wow.
And then they had it mastered at Abbey Road Studios, where the Beatles recorded. And so it would be out now, except that his store, Honest John's in the UK, is not open yet because of the pandemic. So he's thinking he'll probably make it available sometime in September or October. It will be available online. But it's a beautiful set. It's actually got, if there's any collectors out there, there was a recording by, where's she at? Well, this might be a better way of doing it. There's also these other parts too. There's like, and I think these are actually, there's a single by the Ward Singers. There's this one, it's Edith Moreno, Get Ready for Judgment Day.
Right.
I think a copy of this just sold, the real original single, for like $350, but it's here on the CD in the Metro Tones.
Yeah.
So, this will all be available online through Honest John's and Amazon and all that. So that is done. That's done. Peace be still. And then there is another Malachi set coming out soon that we'll be able to tell you more about this fall.
Wow. Oh, now right before I go, what is that? I wanted to ask you, from a collector's point of view,
Mhm.
what is gold and what is, I don't want to say trash. What's gain and what's not gain from a collector's point of view?
Collectors seem to be very much into very low volume, small, local groups that maybe only made 100 records, locally to sell at their programs. But the focus is really on the 70s. For me as a collector, I'm more interested in the historical, but a lot of the collectors are interested in this 70s sound that a lot of instrumentation, usually a real heavily bass oriented, really strong bass, quartet or group, maybe some singers. That's really what you're finding if you have records that are with very local labels, or maybe even just a private label of a quartet from the 70s. In general, those are the ones that collectors are more interested in now, largely because they're younger, and that's their nostalgic years.
Right.
Remember, yeah.
Well, for me, I was really tough on Savoy, but thanks to the Gospel according to Malachi, I could let loose because more than likely, there was certain artists that I was trying to build my collection with, just to hear or read the different liner notes and things and whatnot. But now I think it's very well rounded now, that I don't need to spend as much money as I was just trying to get the liner notes. So now I'm more into selective groups, and I try to get everything that they've done, and I want to listen to it from its original point of view. and then I wanted to begin to create my perspective and write accordingly. So, of course, Alex Bradford has been the top of the list. So I think I just completed my Alice Bradford collection. The only thing I'm missing is, and maybe you might know, I think it was 1959 he did or 1959 or 1958, he did the Newport Jazz Fest. But I see the program of it, and I did see a CD with his set, but I'm trying to figure out, was there ever a record released from that?
Trying to remember, I know there was the one with the Back Home Choir and the
Right.
Drinkard Singers. I don't think he was on that one. I'd have to check. I'd have to take a look. I'm not thinking of it right off the bat. I remember that one with the Drinkards, but I can't remember if I don't think he was on that, and I don't know that there was.
Right.
There may have been a reissue or something that included some of those, like Tony Heilbut's reissue of Mahalia Jackson and her Newport, which wasn't
Was
out
that
on
97? I mean, 57, or what year was that?
that was, I thought, 57 or 58. It was
Okay.
that, yeah, it was that one where they made the movie, Jazz on a Summer's Night, and she was in it.
Right.
And Tony Heilbut was able to get the recordings and reissue them on a CD. Alex, I don't know where those are.
Yeah, because I'm like, I know that he did it, and I know the set was phenomenal. And I did stumble across. I should always write whenever I find something, right? Because there is a CD that they did put his act, but I axed it out because I'm like, if there's a CD, there has to be some type of dated collection of this, and that's what I was kind of looking for.
You know what I think now it's coming, but there might be one on a CD on Vanguard. Vanguard.
Okay.
I think it also has like the Dixie Hummingbirds, and it has the Chambers Brothers and some others. Something tells me, like, I remember an Alex Bradford track on a Vanguard
Okay.
Jazz Festival CD.
Well,
it's probably,
that's what I'm looking for. So, man, Bob, I think we covered everything. I really just wanted to just have a time to embrace on you and, do it my own little style or
well, thank
whatnot.
you.
So
I
I
appreciate
appreciate, I appreciate you, man. Man, and like I say to everyone, man, love on someone and change a life. Remember, the smile that you wear on your face can be the very thing that helps someone continue on in this race, because trust me, it's rough out here, and anything can make a person kind of deteriorate their focus. So let's try to plant more positive seeds into the world so that we all can be inspired, because when we are inspired as a people, we do better at aiming towards our goals and our dreams. Thank you, Bob.
Well, thank you. And Eric, thank you for everything you're doing. You're giving us all hope that this music, this history will continue, because God has granted you this skill and this ability and interest to share it with others. And that is great. That just shows that the music has ambassadors for the future. This is awesome. Thank you for doing what
I
you're doing.
appreciate that. And we will talk soon. Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.